Hey guys, Intrepidus podcast, Dan Sikowski, Anthony D'Angelo. We have an awesome guest today, Sal Ventre from the Ventre Team. Sal's in the real estate space. He's going to tell us about what he does.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm a real estate broker. I've been selling real estate for the past 11 years now. I was just telling Dan and these guys, I've never had a paycheck. I've always been sales commission, so real estate kind of came natural to me.
Awesome, awesome. Well, you told us before the show, like you've been entrepreneurial your whole world and your whole life. It's all you've known. You've never taken a paycheck. You were hustling since you were a young kid. So maybe talk about your journey. Like, what did you do in high school, and then where did you get to that space that you are today?
Yeah, so I don't know. I've always just kind of had that entrepreneurial bug. Like I said, I've never had a paycheck. The first business venture that I've ever had, and I clearly remember this, and I tell a lot of people about this. So I was in third grade. I was 8 years old, and I used to hang out with my cousin all the time. I never had brothers or sisters growing up. I do now, but until I was 14, I was an only child. So I used to hang with my cousins all the time. And my cousin Charlie, his family, they weren't like wealthy by any means, but like his dad hustled. They always had like the cool new thing, right? And so they got a CD burner. And I was 8, so this was going back 27 years ago.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like no one knew what a CD burner was. Like it was weird. And so we were like, oh my God, you can put like different songs on one thing. Like this is crazy. And so I was like, why don't we sell these to kids in school? And so the next day I remember going with a sheet of paper and going to all of my friends and like, write down your 10 favorite songs and I'll make a CD for you for $5. And like we wrapped it in a tissue because we didn't have CD cases or anything. So I remember wrapping it in a tissue. My one buddy, Anthony, actually, it's been quite some time, but I want to say like 5 or 6 years ago, I seen him for first time in like a decade, and he literally had the CD. He was like, "Bro, it has like Cisco the Thong song,
Oh,
and
Beautiful.
like all this
The
crazy."
classics.
Yeah, exactly. So that was my first business venture when I was 5, and then I just hustled my whole life from there. Like middle school, I remember having my parents take me to Collinswood Flea Market and getting like rolls of like fake Gucci and Louis fabric and
Yep. Yep.
like sewing them on jeans and selling them and like just anything to make a buck. Like it's always where my head was at. And then in college, I actually taught myself how to cut hair. So went to West Virginia University, and like coming from Jersey, getting your haircut was a big thing. Like it was a once a week ritual. I would go with my
Right.
boys. We'd be at the barbershop for 5 hours. And so when I got to West Virginia, no one cut hair. And I went with one of my best friends from Tom's River. He was like, dude, you got to shape me up. You got to do something. So I taught myself how to cut hair. And then eventually all the, everyone on campus was like, can you cut my hair? Can you cut my hair? And then by the time I was a senior, I was only taking classes 2 days a week because every other day I was fully booked.
well, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. So it's just kind of one thing. Honestly, I told my wife the other day, and like, I don't know that I'm proud of this or not, but it's just always been my thing. I was like, I never wanted to be a real estate agent. I just wanted to be rich. And I was like, however, whatever vehicle will get me to making the money that I want to make, so be it. Like, I
Mm.
never was like emotionally tied to anything.
Yeah, it's how I was when I was younger. I wanted to be rich. I had a big like woohoo moment and realized that and you'll know it now. Your beginning run of real estate, you want to be rich. You were hustling, 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 and all you're doing was chasing the money, chasing the money, chasing the money. Now you're at a point where you're a broker. You've got people working with you. Now you realize, hey, if I help all these people make money, I'll make more money. So the rich factor really sits in differently. I was
Sure.
the same way. How was that run when like you're like, I want to be rich. You're your own realtor, chasing everything, and you didn't realize, hey, this stuff's not going to come back. I got to keep doing it.
Yeah, man. I mean, just like anything else, right? Like people say this all the time. Like when I got my real estate license, if you had said like, "Hey, 10 years from now, this is all the shit that you would have to deal with and do," and I probably wouldn't have signed up, but here I am now, and I'm happy that I did.
When did you realize, what Dan was just saying? When did you realize that you had to create a team in order to achieve your goal of being successful?
So I've been running a real estate team for about 7 years
Mhm.
now. And for me, it was just always a matter of just subconsciously like never wanting to be stagnant.
Mm.
Right. And so like after my first 3, 4 years in the business, I kind of got to a place where I obviously wasn't at the top yet, but I got very comfortable with like, all right, I get this business. I'm doing well enough. Like, what's the next step? What's
Mhm.
the next level? And I knew that like one of the tougher things about my business being in like a service business is there's only one of me, right? I can only be so many places at one time. And so I was like, all right, how do I make more money? I can either sell more homes,
Mhm.
um, or sell more expensive homes, of course, but I personally can only sell so many homes. And that's
Right.
actually when I started the team. So I got maxed out. I mean, my first couple of years I was selling, 10, 15, 20 homes. And then I got to a point where I was selling 60, 70 homes a year by myself, running around like a lunatic. Fortunately, I didn't have a wife or kids, so I was able to do that. But then I was like, all right, there's no way for me to sell more homes than this without more people.
Okay.
And
So
that's,
that came pretty organically.
yeah.
You maxed yourself out. You said, okay, I've done as much as I could do. Maybe I could sell more homes, but maybe my personal life will suffer. All right, now what's the next step? All right, introduce a new team. So what did that look like for you? Exactly. How did you go from selling for yourself to selling for an entire team or showing the team how to sell?
Dude, I've always been like fake it till you make it, man. Like that's always been my thing. Like, just I'll figure it out.
Hmm.
I just take that step and figure it out. And so that's really what I did. And I went through a lot of people, and because I probably just wasn't a good business owner, I just was
Well,
learning.
that's a good topic then. Let's talk about how you identify who's going to be a good salesperson or a good person for your team.
Yeah, that's a good question because I still struggle with that right now. And one of the things that I've realized, and so about a year ago, I hired for the very first time, I hired a business coach for myself, and he's actually helped me very much with that because in the past, whenever I had an employee that didn't work out to where I thought it was going to be, I always put the blame on myself,
Right.
and I would take it very, very personally. And that's something that, like, I think as an entrepreneur, it's a gift and a curse that I take everything super personal and I'm super critical about what I do. And that can be challenging, but I also feel it's why, like, I hold myself to a higher standard.
Higher
And I feel
standard,
that's
yeah,
why I'm
absolutely.
able to do well. But one of the things that my coach has made me realize is like, hey, for every, like, what it's boiled down to now is like I want 18 people. It's not just about how much can you sell and produce. If that comes along with like a lot of drama and complaining and this, that, the other thing, I don't care what your numbers are.
Mm.
So that's like first and foremost. And then like what I've realized is it's just a numbers thing. And like I want, so two things. Number one, I want to hire the people, what I've realized now, because I used to want to hire people that like I can make better and like
Hmm.
grow and
A
like
project.
right, a
Mold, like you
project,
said,
Right.
yeah.
right. But what my coach has made me realize is like, no, no, no. You want to hire people that are going to be great with or without you.
Right.
You want those people so that, like, I want people that are already on fire. I just want to add fuel to it. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And like help you get there. I can't take you from nothing to burning though. You know what I
Right,
mean? Like
right.
you got to have a
Mhm.
little bit of something. And that's what I realized. And then I also realized it's a numbers thing, right? So like I look at it now as for every 10 people I hire, maybe one or two are going to be that 18 person, So like hire fast, fire faster.
That's my industry's the worst. I can't tell you. I've been through more employees than customers.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Like, just how people today, like, and in my industry a lot of times is, you got really good people in the industry who just, couldn't do it their own business, so they come with their own standards, and it's hard to like re-get these people challenging to be in a better spot because they have their own set ways and they want to do things, and hey, it didn't work for you, you got to do it my way. And it's always a struggle. So it's true, you get like 1 out of 10. But what I've realized about you, which I really like about you and what you do, we've known each other for some time. I remember when you were doing those 60 homes a year.
Yeah, yeah.
You literally, you call Sal, you answer the
Hmm.
phone in 2 seconds, but he's only got 1 second for you because he got another call coming in. I
Yeah.
remember those days.
Yeah.
But you've created something over the course of the last, I would say, 3 years, is a dynamic culture. Your culture is unbelievable. Why
Thanks.
is that important to you?
I think it's important for a couple of reasons. I think that I want to have fun, right? Like I want to have a good time and be surrounded by the right types of people. And I think that also too, like that's what motivates people at the end of the day. I'm very money motivated.
Okay.
But I also realize that it's not everyone's thing. And I think at the end of the day, culture trumps all, right? Like if you don't have a good culture, and honestly, it's something that I continue to try to work on, and I'm still very hypocritical of myself. Like I need to get better with culture. Like that's like number one priority for me. Like constantly, like keep the culture high, keep the culture high, because I think if people are in that type of environment, um, they're going to be more loyal to you. They're going to want to work harder for you. They're going to, you know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it's super important for me, but I got to work on it every day and remind myself every day about it.
Yeah, you work super hard at what you do and how you promote yourself, and it shows. Like, you're very proud. of what you became, and you're very proud of what you have to offer. You know, it's kind of like the same. We're sitting in Cuts Connect right now. Like Anthony's proud of what he offers.
Absolutely.
He knows who his clientele is, who's coming in. He knows if he's going to cut you, if he's not going to cut you. He knows if he wants to cut you, and if he
Right.
cuts you once, he doesn't like it, he's not cutting you again. You know, but he's created a culture, and he's created a presence for himself that,
For sure.
you know, I think a lot of us in business do. But like I said, I've watched you over the last 6 years, and I've just watched you grow. And I text you, you know, hey, proud of you, bro. You're doing awesome. You know
Yeah,
what
I
I mean? Like,
appreciate that.
and we've stayed in contact. And you know, one thing I could tell you is I remember when you didn't have a wife, you didn't have kids, and then I saw the transition. I saw how you became this family guy, and I watched
Yeah.
how you took that motivation and you really spread yourself out, and you devoted your life to family, you devoted your life to business, and now you got another kid on the way. You know, things are moving quickly, but let's talk about, you know, through this journey of 11 years, you know, of what you've been in. Like, let's talk about a fearful moment, like a really hard time that you had where maybe you just thought maybe this wasn't for me, or I might not make it, or
Yeah.
am I doing the right thing?
I could tell you immediately this moment pops into my head. So my beginning of my third year in real estate, right? My first year, I got lucky because the guy that hired me, my broker, took a liking to me, kind of took me under his wing, and he was like, "Hey, I've got this new construction project. There's like 10, 12 homes. I want you to help me sell them." Right now, I think the average amount of homes sold by a realtor is like 3 or 4 per year. So to just be handed 10 or 12 homes, I was like, oh my God, this like doesn't happen. Right. So I sold those and then I got cocky. Right. I was 23, 24 years old. And I was like, this is fucking easy. Let me go sell $1 million homes. Right. And so I moved to Red Bank at the time in my second year of real estate, left that company after the guy just like completely hooked me.
Helped you,
Wow.
took care of you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Wow.
left the company.
Yeah.
Remember, I'm a young kid at the time, right? And so I go to Red Bank where I think it's like going to be more affluent, yada yada. Reality fucking hits me in the face. I can't sell shit. Plus, I'm competing with like a way higher level of agents and just in an area where I knew nobody, I had no connections, and like I started to panic. And then fortunately, I met a gentleman that was flipping houses, and boom, I had like a half a dozen, 10 deals handed to me again.
Mm.
Okay.
Then that dried up. He wasn't flipping houses anymore. I had nothing coming to me. I was in an area where I knew nobody, and I started to struggle very, very bad. I had moved to Red Bank and was renting an apartment. I had a couple deals die because that's what people don't tell you in real estate is like I could get an offer accepted. I got this like commission check that is supposed to be coming in. Most people spend it, and then deals die often, you know? And so I remember hitting a rough patch and having no deals under contract, nothing even in the works, and no money. Like I'm talking $0. And I've got rent, car payment, etc., like everything,
Mm.
right? And I'm like, what the fuck do I do? And now I could probably have asked, you know, family members and people, and but like I was just too proud at the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And so I
You don't want to
remember
tell anyone your struggle.
exactly. Well, that was it too, right? I was
I
trying to
definitely
live
agree.
up to this whole facade of being a successful realtor,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know. And so I'll never forget it. I ended up going to the pawn shop, and my dad had bought me. I was a big watch guy, right? My dad had bought me a Tag Heuer watch for my 16th birthday, and I pawned it to get money to just put gas in my car, pay my rent, you know,
Right.
whatever. And I remember, I got like chills. I remember literally going back into my car afterwards and just fucking breaking down and crying, and just
Mm.
being like, what am I doing? Like maybe, you know, and I always like had this, and I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs and successful people do. I've always just had this weird like thing in me that was like, I'm gonna be successful. Like I just like I got something in me that like I have to be, right? And then I remember sitting in my car crying and thinking like maybe that was just all bullshit. Maybe I'm a fraud. Maybe I should just go like wait tables, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like I don't know. This just isn't for me. I can't hack it. Like maybe I'm not as smart as I thought. Maybe I'm, you know, and so I drove home to my apartment and didn't get out of the car, just sat there and I put on, and it's actually funny, like it's almost like it's like weird to even say now, but I remember specifically putting on YouTube It was a Will Smith motivational like
Oh,
speech.
Will
like
Smith,
back
all
in the
right.
day.
Bro, he used to drop some gems,
Yeah, he did.
right? And I remember sitting and listening to it and just kind of like getting pumped up and like listening to another one. And then I was just like, you know what? Like, I have to fucking make this work, you know? So I actually called. My mother was working at a TGI Fridays at the time. She was managing at Fridays. I was like, I got to get a job bartending because I have no money coming in. I don't know when another real estate deal is going to work. So she ended up getting me in to train like the next day or something. And I went in and I trained as a bartender. And I left, and I remember calling my mom. I'm like, I'm not coming back. I'm like, I'm gonna
I,
fucking
One and
figure this.
done.
I
I'm
can't
gonna
do this.
figure this the
Yeah.
Yeah.
fuck out. And I put my head down. I literally did nothing besides study real estate and figure out how to make it work in real estate. And then the end of that year, I was the number one agent in my office.
You had a reason, you had a purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. So through real estate and through your career of success and everything that you've done, maybe let's talk about, when you kind of threw the brakes on. You were doing so well. You were into trenches. You were doing A, B, and C, and you were doing everything that you needed to do. And all of a sudden, everything was driving. And then you stopped doing that stuff, and the outcome dropped. And then you're like, oh man, I got to get in the trenches again. I don't think people understand that you
Yeah,
always got to stay in that first phase, and
for
always
sure.
keep going.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, so recently actually, I mean, I started the team like I said 6 7 years ago, and it was always kind of small, couple people. And then in 2020 we went from 6 7 agents to 35 really quickly, and I was solely managing agents. I wasn't really working on my own deals or clients. A couple of clients didn't love that and don't work with me anymore because of it, you know. But at the time I was like, you know what, this is what I have to do. And I realized that so and this is just for me personally. I realized that for my team and what I was doing, when I was leading by example,
Mm,
they were taking so much more from it.
Hmm.
And like as soon as I stopped and I was just and it was partly me, like I needed to grow and learn from it, but when I stopped, it was more or less like you do that, you do that, you do that, you do that, and I think they were sitting back like, well, you don't even do that shit
mm,
anymore. You know what I mean? So for me, what I found is when I lead by example and I can go to our weekly meeting and be like, hey, I just signed 3 new listings. I just closed this. I just closed that. I got this. I got that. They're like, oh shit, we better listen to what this guy has to
mm,
say, you know?
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I could attest from that firsthand, right? I had my business. I have a couple locations, but I was had a difference between New York and New Jersey. The management style was much different. New York, very lead from the front, like yourself, right? He realized that from an early start, as soon as he started, and it was a slow start because it was a new market. And New Jersey, on the other hand, was too busy, right? New Jersey manager was too busy to go out into the field. Numbers started to drop, right? We said, what's going on? We compared it to New York. New York's numbers were rising. Same amount of work. How could that be? So we looked at it real closely and found that, this manager in New York was leading from the front. Told the manager in New Jersey, hey, you got to get out there. You got to start doing this. No, that's not the problem.
sure.
That's when you start questioning if they should be employed. But nevertheless, New York now is 40% higher than New Jersey, and New Jersey is our oldest market, right? So, a testament to what you're saying is it's absolutely true. There's no way around it. Leading from the front is the only way.
But so it's funny because I agree. And that's for me, that's what works for me.
Hmm.
But I still kind of beat myself up because I'm like, let's look at big, big, big businesses, right? For the sake of like, my business is still small. If you're looking at like
Yep,
massive
yeah.
businesses, those people are not like those people that are leading those massive, massive businesses are not in the trenches really anymore. You can't be when you're
No,
that
absolutely
large.
not.
And so I do feel it's partly the industry, but I do feel it's partly that like I need to be a better leader
Hmm.
and figure out how to like I had a conversation with a really good friend of mine not long ago, and he was in the insurance business. And so in his business, you have to start by being a sales rep and selling insurance, but then natural progression is you want to lead a sales team and the whole region, etc. And I was talking to him about this, and I had this exact conversation. Like I feel like I just got to get back in the trenches and lead by example. And He was like, dude, I will never sell a policy ever again. Are you doing this with your agents? No. Are you doing this with your agents? No.
Mhm,
Like, and I
mhm,
feel like it's partly the industry, but it's partly like I need to be a better leader, you
mhm.
know? It's like, are you
Yeah.
still hammering nails on
No,
the
so I
shelf?
was just gonna say, our industries are totally different. My guys don't see what I do. They don't see all the time I'm putting in, the hours I'm putting in, the emails and takeoffs, all the stuff that I'm doing on the back end. They see like the glory. They see the nice car,
Of
they see
course.
this, they see that. But my hours are doubled. Like this morning by 8:30 in the morning, I literally did 4 hours of work in like 2 hours time because I wasn't distracted. I got it all done. But they don't see this stuff. And I think the biggest thing too is like if I was in the field, and you're talking about the bigger guy. If that bigger guy was still here, he wouldn't be the bigger guy, right?
Correct.
So if I was still in the field, I wouldn't be able to do that. I would be so burnt out. But there comes a point in every industry, you're not going to ever get the respect from some of the other people because they're going to look at you a certain way and they've already identified you as this, but they don't realize what you're doing. But you will get the respect from the other people who watch you do it and want to know what you're doing and are also have been around from where you started.
And those are the
You know,
people that matter, right?
Right.
Those are the people that you
Exactly.
want to keep around. Like you were saying, I want A plus guys. I don't. I'm not trying to work somebody from ground zero up to on fire, and I got to put them out. I want those people that. And this was before the pod, I believe, before we
Yeah.
actually started recording.
Yeah. Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that. How you decide who your next team member is.
So for me, I personally, I don't like recruit for my team. It's fortunately been all organic. I've got a pretty good like social media presence and just like name around the industry that people will want to reach out. And um, I've gone back and forth between like, do I just hire everyone or do I get really, really specific and do these intricate interview processes? And what I've boiled it down to is like, I don't just hire anyone. I feel like I'm a decent judge of character, so I'll have an interview with someone. But if you show any potential, typically, like I'll bring you on. But what I've realized now is like I used to keep people on for way, 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 way too long, and just like think that they were gonna, oh, they're gonna turn it
right.
around. They're gonna. And what I've realized now is like I want people that are going to win with or without me. And, a lot of times I won't know that until I bring them into my world, but I can usually tell now, like within the first 90 days, like either you're a winner or you're not, or like either you're A team or you're not. And I can bring a B team person to A team sometimes, but like I can't get C. Like if you're C, D, like,
Yeah,
and when I say that, I mean like complainers, drama,
yeah.
putting blame on everyone, never taking responsibility for anything, not wanting, like, if you're the person that says like, hey, like, do I have to get dressed up for this appointment? I don't want any bare minimum people.
Mm.
If you're asking me what's the bare minimum you can do, that's a sign right there. Like, I don't want
Show up to win every day.
every fucking day.
Yeah,
Like I love the quote, how you do something is how you do
yeah,
everything. Like, and
Right.
it's so fucking
yeah.
true,
So right, right.
you
I,
know?
I can't agree more. Actually, someone pointed out a mutual friend of ours. He's like, I was complaining about how slow he does work sometimes, and he goes, "Does he walk slow?" Yeah. Like, well, that's
Yeah.
what he does. Everything else is going to be slow behind that. But I want to touch on your hiring process again,
Yeah, yeah.
or how you decide, who's going to be part of the team. And lucky, and this time, I know Dan deals with it too. Hiring is impossibility for a lot of businesses right now. I mean, my dentist, for goodness sake, can't even get a hygienist. So lucky in that aspect, and
Yeah,
probably a
yeah.
testament to what you do on social media and whatnot. But as far as, again, back to the hiring goes, I know my personal model is hire for character, train for skill. So
I
in
like
your
that.
case, if someone walks in the door and they say, and you have a great attitude, they have an A team attitude, but a B team maybe skill set. Do you train to
Of
that?
course, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think you're spot on, right? Like you can't teach someone how to have good character, good work ethic, or want it, But I could always teach the skills. Like that's the
Mm.
least of my concerns. Yeah, for sure. Like, but you got to just want it. You got to want to show up. You gotta,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, I got a guy right now, one of my companies that's like he's fully checked out. Shows up for the check and does the bare minimum and I'm literally doing the job. Like ask me everything before I'm like, dude, like so there's replacement coming in, but in my industry it's hard. Like, you got a full transition. This person's dealing with a lot of people, so you got to do a full transition, and it's tough. People take advantage of every situation, and there's so many people out there who just want to do everything but do nothing.
Yeah.
You know,
See, it's tough in my business because I don't pay my employees,
right?
right? And so it's very independent in the sense of like, if you don't want to hustle and make money, yes, giving I'm not coming out of pocket, but then I make no money for the time that I've invested
You
into
wait,
you. And so
wait,
like it's a little bit different in my industry because I need people that are self-motivated. I need people that want to hustle. Like, it's not okay to just show up, And like I tell everyone all the time, like, I can't want you to be successful more than you want to be.
exactly.
If that's the case, this isn't gonna work.
So let's talk about, so intrepidus is Latin word for fear. We talk about it all the time. Um, I think fear is important. A lot of people don't really register that people who are successful have a lot of fearing moments. How does fear play a part of your life today?
Jeez, it plays a huge part of my life. Like I said, I always kind of had this like internal voice that was like, you are meant for something bigger. And so my biggest fear has always been regret. Like, my biggest fear is that I'm just not living up to my full potential. Like, I'm not doing what God wanted me to do. You know what I mean?
That's funny. I just posted a video on the way here, and I said, like, we're not guaranteed tomorrow.
Right.
Like, you go up to the gates, God's gonna be like, hey, you know, you're not who I thought you were.
Right.
Like, you don't want him to be disappointed in you, right?
Right. I don't want to get there and be like, I gave you all this shit and you didn't
Yeah,
use it.
yeah.
You know what I
Mhm,
mean? Like,
mhm.
that's my biggest fear. And so, I just, I, every
Good way to
single,
put it. I
literally,
gave you all
People
I
this.
put,
gave you all this shit and you
yeah.
blew it. Like, what the fuck, man?
He,
That's what I think of.
God
Right,
literally lays out a
right.
carpet of opportunity, and I think the biggest thing that, people don't realize what they do is they put it off. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it someday. I always say someday is not a day of the week.
Yep.
At the end of the day, we might not be here someday.
Yep.
We might not be here tomorrow.
Right.
So how would you feel if, like, you were laying in the bed today and these were your last words, your last breaths, and you're like, I wish I did this. I
Oh,
wish you don't want to be that
never.
person. You know what I mean?
What about back to the topic on fear. You mentioned just before sitting in your car and you had a sense of imposter syndrome, right? And I think a
Yeah.
lot of entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, that everybody has this moment where, they have imposter syndrome. They're like, maybe I'm not who I thought I was, or maybe I can't do what I thought I was capable of. How do you get over that?
It's something that I work on every day,
Hmm.
because I still have those thoughts.
Okay.
And I think I probably always will, but that's what drives me to do more and do more. But I think, to like, the most practical advice that I can give, and it's something that I'm working on right now, is keeping little promises to myself.
Okay.
Like, waking up earlier has always been something that, I keep like, it's not a journal, it's more or less like my calendar,
Yep.
but I also write notes, and I, from my coaching calls, and everything's on there. And so I always look back at those things, and I can literally tell you, and it almost like it's embarrassing to even say out loud, but for years I've had the same things that have been holding me back. I need to wake up earlier, I need to drink less alcohol, if we're being honest,
Mhm.
and I need to just remove any distractions from my life,
Mhm.
right?